Hey everybody, welcome back to the Guardian Project podcast. This is episode 149 and I'm your host Andy, and the lease for my car's coming up and I'm looking at new cars to get, and I think I'm going to look at leasing a mysterious limousine.
Oh, that's going to be very expensive lease, I imagine.
I couldn't do the unlicensed hearse though, because I think that goes against like a lease agreement. It has to be fully licensed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I'm your other host, Mike, and I am all about this New Capenna side story. I don't know if you've heard about this, the uprising of property dividers. You have scheming fences all over, but luckily the town has a celebrity fencer to thwart them all.
Did you bring that up because I actually have like neighbor stuff going on with fences?
No, but I did think about it when I saw the card scheming fence. For sure I did.
That's funny.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering.
But mostly Commander.
Yeah, that's really funny because we are looking at getting a privacy fence now. One of our neighbors moved in and they wanted to know if we wanted to go in half for it. So now I don't know if I want to get one of the fences as a privacy fence. Now I have to quote the whole backyard because it's going to look silly with one portion of one fence as a privacy fence. And then not having anything else as a privacy fence, and it just being short chain link fence.
Now, if you do hire someone to do your fencing, I would recommend hiring a professional fencer, not necessarily a celebrity fencer.
We won't do celebrity fencer, but it could be like that show on HGTV where, remember everybody they would go to a Home Depot and hope that they found them, and then you had that really ugly backyard and they would redo it, and you always got a pergola. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
There was always a pergola.
You needed to have one.
But I already have one, so I just need the fence.
There you go.
Okay, so before we get started, I wanted to talk about fixing and correcting warped cards. So for those of you that follow me on Twitter, you have seen my journey over the last week or so. And Mike, you had done this before, and I had talked about it before, not liking the fact that obviously some cards are coming curled and some are coming curled to the point that they're not even usable. I mean, you literally couldn't put Commander Legends cards in a deck, and Secret Lair was right behind it. Secret Lair cards were just as bad if you order them in foil, and I do because I like foils. And so I was really mad for a while, and then I finally said, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to get these humidifier packs. So I bought them, and the brand that I got was, I think it's pronounced Boveda or Boveda, but they are 65% humidity, and it's just a humidity control. And I said, all right, well, I'm gonna try it out, and I'm gonna put a few cards in a Ziploc bag. Man, some of them corrected like in 2 days.
Nice.
And it did take. Okay, so the worst I will say is the Secret Lair that had the Rise of the Dark Realms, Liliana, Death's Majesty, and the Gravecrawler. I think it came from, I don't know. It was like that drop with like those posters. I feel like the movie night poster. I don't know. I don't remember which one. And then after that was do you remember the Planeswalkers as like something else? Like Planeswalkers, if they had lived a different life, and it had like Vraska as like the prom queen.
And yeah.
A Johnny as like an X-Man. X-Men.
Yeah. It's like a multiverse thing.
Yeah, like it was a multi, like what if they had done something different? Well, those ones were really, really bad too. And now they're perfectly flat. And nice. So I'm pretty excited. What brand did you use? Because we wanted to talk about it because I think there were a lot of people who have expressed the fact that some of these cards, they just couldn't be used. And I don't like the fact that I had to spend $16 to get the humidifier pack and then also wait a week and a half. But if you are at your wit's end and you know that you have cards in your deck that is, I mean, they were warping my sleeves.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
My sleeves were getting bent. I can attest, at least to my brand. What brand did you have and what humidity control did you use?
So it was, the brand I used is Zoot, Z-U-U-T, and it was 62.5% humidity, which is important. You don't actually want a dehumidifier or a rehumidifier, but you want a two-way humidifier pack to actually just regulate the humidity inside, because you don't really know if it was lack of moisture or added moisture that caused your warping.
Yeah, and I did have to take a look because there were folks that were asking if they curled backwards or forward, and mine they've only ever curled back. So like they curl back to the side that has the Magic the Gathering on the back. Mine have never curled forward. I guess when they curl forward, that means that they are very humid.
Right.
Like they need to dry out versus getting the moisture in them. So they worked really well. And the package that I have does say that they last up to 2 years inside the resealable bags. So you should be able to use them to correct like a lot of cards.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to try to do is put all of the foils that I had gotten from Commander Legends inside of some Ziploc bags and just leave them for a while. Cause I think they correct faster the less cards you have with them.
Sure.
Or at least that's what I experienced. And I still have quite a few bags of these going right now. But for those of you who were interested and have been following, they do work really, really well. And this week we actually got a new or the updated April 2022 quarterly update from the Commander Rules Committee. Update, spoiler alert, there are no changes. From an administrative perspective, rules perspective, or cards perspective. The announcement says that they're comfortable with the format is at the moment, especially given that it hasn't been a full quarter since their last update. As they get back to playing fully in person, they're going to see how or if the landscape changes, and they're going to see if there was a significant uptick in cards or related to cards that make treasures, which will bring any deeper consideration regarding Dockside Extortionist. We will be talking about Streets of New Capenna today, and a lot of those cards do just have make a treasure stapled onto it, which I think is probably one of my biggest complaints. Is like, okay, well, I guess everything just makes treasure now. I guess it's cool that it's there, but it feels like it's going to turn into, well, why aren't you just running this fight spell? Because now it just has treasure on it. And,
right.
Then you have to deal with that. But it does say that their next scheduled quarterly update is in conjunction with the release of Dominaria United later in the summer and early fall. And they said, but between now and then, they look forward to enjoying what's coming, which we know after this, we're going to be getting Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. So nice to see that things are in a good place. I think we've seen, I personally have seen a lot of variety. I'm officially at 100 games this year. So I've seen a lot of new stuff. I have been happy to see a lot of the old stuff going back to playing in person. I mentioned last year, I'm seeing a lot of people bring back out their old decks because not everybody is a content creator like us or playing on streams with other content creators who are constantly making new decks. They're just tweaking older decks, which I appreciate seeing and knowing what they do.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually experienced the same thing. I got to play a bunch of Commander this last weekend, so I was able to see a lot of old decks, some Nekusars and some Zers coming back out of the woodworks, and it was fun. It's fun to see those old ones.
Yeah.
So we also have some changes to the list coming up here for Streets of New Capenna, and it's actually particularly exciting this time because we are getting some cards that have not been printed in sets other than Secret Lairs, and really they haven't been printed at all yet in this version of them. Adding to the list are the Secret Lair Stranger Things cards, but the Innistrad character versions of them. So we're going to have Arnivox the Mind Flail, Bjorna Nightfall Alchemist, Cecily Haunted Mage, Elmar Ulvenwald Informant, Harglide Kindly Runechanter, Orhelm Sigardian Outcast, Sophina Super Sage Deserter, and Wernog Rider's Chaplain. I probably destroyed half of those.
I do like that. I think a few of them, but I like that you said Super Sage Deserter.
Yeah, Spear Sage. No, Super Sage. She deserted the Super Sage.
She's got a Super Soaker, the Super Soaker Deserter.
That's but funny. With fire.
Yeah. I'm excited because I did not get this Secret Lair. You got the Secret Lair.
I did.
I wasn't into the Stranger Things crossover there. I really like Stranger Things. I just didn't want them like this, but I'm excited now because I think a few of them fit into some of my decks. I didn't have them, so I can get them now. I'm excited for this. But we're also getting a reprint from an old card in a new border here. We're getting a Rafiq of the Many.
Yeah, very cool.
What are we calling this border? What's this border called?
The Art Deco border?
Is this the Art Deco border? It's like it's got like the buildings.
Oh, Golden Age treatment.
The Golden Age treatment. I do like this card. It's a card I haven't seen in a long time. Rafiq of the Many is an exalted. It's Bant, green, white, blue, so it fits really well with this. But whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gains double strike until end of turn. So exalted's a cool mechanic. So people who are running Rafik, they can get this new cool artwork.
Yeah, if you're thinking about building a new Voltron deck, build a Rafik deck. They're unique. They are actually unique. We don't see a lot of them in the wild, and I think they're really, really cool.
I feel like Rafik, and I'd have to go back now, but Rafik, if we the next time we do an episode of Commanders that we never see played, which is I feel like always going to continue to be a thing now because we're getting so many new Commanders. If Rafik wasn't on one of those, which I feel like it already was, it's probably gonna be on the next episode.
Yeah, for sure it will be. But there's also a few other cards that are being added to the list that maybe you would care about. The big one being Zakama Primal Calamity is going to be added to the list. A card originally printed in Rivals of Ixalan. Real big dinosaur that you can do some really silly stuff with, enter the battlefield effects. And there's also Urbrask the Hidden being reprinted here on the list because it does have a printing here in Streets of New Capenna, a new Urbrask card. So they like to mimic that Phyrexian into the list. I've noticed when we go to those particular planes. So a couple other cool cards other than these Stranger Things reprints coming up to the list in Streets of New Capenna.
Yeah, Zakama's a good one. Zakama's a really good one here. That card is $35 as the regular printing. I mean, looking at it now, the pre-release promos almost $70, and then the Judge card, which just came out in 2021, so it was a card from just last year, that's $100. So that's a good one. So if you open that one up, if you're one of the lucky few that opens one of those on the list, or I feel like there were a couple of really bomb list cards that were like, oh, if you get this, you paid for a box.
Oh yeah.
You really made out. I do like those, and we have both come around to opening set boosters.
Yes.
We were not down with the set boosters when they came out, but we realized we weren't drafting for so long, so why not instead of opening packs that only have one rare and a bunch of cards that we might not actually use in our commander decks, if we're going to spend that money, maybe open up 2 or 3, or maybe in some cases, which we have both seen, 4 rares or 3 mythics in a pack. You're just like, wow, this is really cool.
Oh yeah.
So check out those in the set boosters for New Capenna. But before we continue, we want to thank everybody who is listening and for all of your support. We want to especially thank our patrons. We cannot do this show without you, and you help keep us going. And if you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount.
And if you're looking for another way to support the podcast, whatever platform you are enjoying the podcast on now, if you could subscribe, rate, review, and leave comments, we would be most appreciative.
You can find us online on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter by searching Guardian Project Podcast, and you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. Mike, what are we talking about this week?
We finally have the entire set of New Capenna released, so we are going to talk about all things New Capenna. We're going to talk about the mechanics of New Capenna, cards from New Capenna that we're adding to existing decks, maybe some decks that we are going to be building from the cards here that we see. So yeah, all things New Capenna today.
All right, let's get to it. So Streets of Capenna is giving us some new mechanics, and we're getting some returning mechanics. So let's take a look at those before we move on to the cards that we want to add to our commander decks. We are getting the returning mechanics of both cycling and hideaway, although cycling is not a fully supported mechanic here. We are only getting it in the hideout cards. So they're the 3-color lands that the bosses of each crime family where they reside. So those have cycling, and then hideaway is returning. So we were right when we were talking about mechanics that or I guess at least during the teaser episode when we talked about that. So Hideaway is coming back, but it is not coming back in the exact same way, which is kind of nice because before, at least from most of the Hideaway stuff that we ever experience in Commander is usually the Hideaway lands. These now just have, you have to like achieve a goal for the Hideaway to really trigger, and then you'd be able to do that. But we are also getting 5 families here. We mentioned them before. I actually think we talked about them on last week's episode, but we have the Brokers, Obscura, Maestros, Riveteers, and Cabaretti. So those are the new names for the shards we've referred to before, and each of them comes with their own new mechanics. So I'll start here with Brokers. The Brokers are the 3-color mechanic that we used to refer to as Bant. So it is white and green and blue, and they get shield counters. So shield counter, say if a permanent with a shield counter on it would be destroyed by an effect, a shield counter is removed from the permanent instead of that creature being destroyed. And if a permanent with a shield counter on it would be dealt damage, that damage is prevented and a shield counter is removed. So it feels very much like the masks that Estrid the Mask gave you, like a totem armor. It feels very much like totem armor to me.
Yeah,
I like this a lot.
I still don't know if there's been judge rulings on if a creature has 2 shield counters and it takes damage, if both shield counters would go away immediately, or if it's one at a time like totem armor would be. I hope it's like the totem armor thing, but that's the only thing I need to know about shield counters to know my final thoughts about the mechanic.
It does say A. I'm going to argue because it says A, but I guess we have to wait. We have to wait a little bit longer. But I think it's really cool. I do think it's unfortunate though if you're playing a deck with shield counters and someone's got like a goblin bombardment and 5 or 6 creatures. Yeah. It's like, oops, I hit you for 1. You take off a whole shield for that. I hit you for 1 more. Your shields are down.
Shields down. Okay. So the next family we have here is Obscura. This is the same color shard that we know before as Esper in the black, blue, and white with its mechanic Connive. And Connive says if a creature you control is instructed to connive, you draw a card and discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that connived. So it's kind of almost combining Surveil and Explore. Explore always cared about the like top card of your library if it was a land or a non-land to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, but you're also drawing the card and discarding a card to do this. So I really this connive ability doesn't really do anything that we know of that's new. I mean we're looting and putting +1/+1 counters on stuff, but I like this ability. Some of the creatures in the Obscura that they've printed on here I think use this ability very well, and I'm excited to play with it.
It plays, I think, really well into the type of play style like that you play, where you can discard and like reanimate, which we, spoiler, we might hear more about that after. But I do like what it does. Doing it all at once is nice. The next family is Maestro. So this is the Grixis shard. So red, blue, black. This one has a new mechanic called Casualty. So as an additional cost to cast a spell that has Casualty, you can sack a creature with power N or greater. So it'll say Casualty 1 or Casualty 2. So it'll have to have power 1 or power 2, whatever it says. That appears next to that keyword. And then if you do so, a triggered ability will copy the spell that you cast. So you're going to be copying spells, which I like because I really liked Magecraft. I do like copying spells. I think it's fun. I don't know where it fits into any of my decks right now. I don't have any I might have decks with token fodder. I haven't looked too deeply into whether or not they synergize with those decks because we've talked about this before, but I primarily build 1 and 2 color decks. And with these being 3 color, a 3-color set, I didn't get a ton of individual goodies, but a lot of the Casualty cards they are like either mono red or mono blue. So it certainly will work with lots of decks.
Definitely. Yeah. There's a few cards in there I'm excited for, like the mill one and stuff I'm excited to use in some decks. All right. So the next family we have here is the Riveteers with the shard Jund, black, green, and red with the keyword Blitz. So Blitz says casting a spell for its Blitz cost has several effects. The creature gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. At the beginning of the next end step, you sacrifice the creature. So this is offering a lot of card draw at the cost of sacrificing your creature at the end of the turn for mono red, which I really like. I know this is the Jund ability, but black and green have enough card draw as is. So being able to get this in mono red is really nice ability to have.
And then finally, the last crime family is Cabaretti. So this was previously known as Naya. So this is red, white, green. And they have Alliance, which is an ability keyword that highlights triggered abilities that trigger whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control. It'll the effect is different on each of the cards, which reminds me of like a mechanic like Ferocious, where it's you can do something as long as you have met the Ferocious requirement, which was having, X power or more on the board all at once. So that this is what this reminds me of. I like it. Some of them will, draw you a card. Some of them will make a creature. Some will pump a creature, or I think one even gives like death touch to a creature. So that is what the Cabaretti do with Alliance. Now we are going to talk about cards that we specifically are going to be adding to decks. And this is my favorite part. I really like talking about these. And instead of doing an entire set review, we talk about cards we're specifically going to use and why we use them. Mm-hmm. So I want to start out with the first on my list, which is Witty Roastmaster. So this is a 3/2 Devil Citizen for 2 and a red. It has Alliance, and it says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Witty Roastmaster deals 1 damage to each opponent. I love this. This is redundancy for token decks. It does a similar thing to Impact Tremors, which again also is when a creature enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. I like Perforos, God of the Forge, which has the same effect, but instead of it just dealing 1 damage to each opponent, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. I run this in Omnath, Locus of Rage, where I have Goblin Bombardment, I have Perforos, I have Impact Tremors, but I also run this in the Locust God because they also make a ton of tokens. I think this is a legitimate budget option for folks that are looking for an alternative to Perforos. So Perforos is, I think, around $20 now. So I certainly understand why someone, might be hesitant to adding a Perforos to a deck. I mean, Theros was a while ago now, and although we did get a reprint in a Secret Lair, it looks like the Secret Lair drop version is $43, and the Theros version is $23. Okay. So it's not an affordable card. So if you can't afford a Perforos and you do want redundancy to an Impact Tremors or, the like, this is a really good card. Honestly, this is for me, this is like a top contender because it excels in multiplayer. It affects everybody at the same time, and it's not just a single target, do 1 damage to target opponent or target creature. This is everyone. I really, really like it.
Yeah, I especially like the fact that it itself is what's dealing damage to your opponents. It's not just your opponent losing life. So you could attach something like a Curiosity to it in order to draw cards every time it deals damage. Or even more disgusting, give it Infect and just have 10 creatures enter the battlefield and knock all of your opponents out.
Yeah. So Witty Roastmaster is honestly, it's a top contender for one of the most useful cards in my opinion from the set for a multiplayer format. So I will be adding this to at least 2 decks, maybe a third when we talk about what we want to build from this set.
For sure. And it's at common, so you'll be able to find your foil, no problem.
No problem. And then I can put it in one of those humidity bags and it'll be flat in no time.
Yes. Right after opening it, stick it in a humidity bag. Okay, so Evolving Door is the first card that I saw that I knew exactly what deck it was going into. Evolving Door is for 2 and a green, you get an artifact that has pay 1 generic and tap it, sacrifice a creature. Count the colors of the sacrificed creature, then search your library for a creature card that's exactly that many colors plus 1. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast the exiled card, activate only as a sorcery. So I look at this card and I look at it like kind of like a birthing pod for my Morophon Humans deck. And it's not exactly the same because Birthing Pod is an artifact that's going to allow you to sacrifice a creature and find a creature with a higher mana value and put it directly onto the battlefield. With Evolving Door, you still have to cast your creature that you exile with it. And you're only looking for colors of creatures. But in my Morophon deck, I have I have 4 1-color creatures, 19 2-color creatures, 9 3-color creatures, 3 4-color creatures, and 1 5-color creature. So I can kind of work my way up to these other creatures. And because this deck is involving Morophon, the Boundless, that allows me to cast my cards for Wooburg less mana cost, so I don't actually have to pay any of the colors into most of the humans in my deck. I can most of the time just cast the cards for free, so it really does feel like a birthing pod. I like the fact that I get to cast the cards. There's some cards cards in the deck that really care about it, like Vanquisher's Banner and Vanquisher's Banner-like effects that care about when I cast a particular creature type, I get to draw cards. So being able to cast the card is actually a plus side for me when it comes to Evolving Door, which I'm sure a lot of people are looking at it as more of a downside. But I know, Andy, we talked about this a little bit, and we think this is going to be actually pretty useful in more than just 4 and 5 color decks, but you can run this in a 2 color deck, no problem.
Yeah, you can run it in a 2 color deck pretty easily. I was taking a look at some of my decks, and even though they are only 2 color, if you have something that makes a token and the token is a color, I mean, it's still 1 color, so you can go grab any of your 2 color creatures then. You might not have a ton of 2 color creatures, but it effectively becomes a tutor. And if you're running a deck that already cares about sacrificing things, you're in green, right? So green black really like sacrifice.
Yep.
I think it works out pretty well. I don't have a specific home for Evolving Door, but
Sure.
if someone's running like a Gerard, Golgor, or Lichlord deck that already sacrifices things, or any of the multitude of green black decks that make tokens like a Slimefoot, you can sack one of your green saprolings that you make to go get a green and a black card. Maybe you're running a Mazarak. A lot of Slimefoot decks run Mazarak. Now you can go tutor for the Mazarak without having to run a single tutor. You can do this multiple turns over and over. Now it's only 3 mana and one to tap and activate.
Even if you had a way of making servo tokens or something like that too, something colorless, you could use this to even find your 1 color. You could find this to find your finishers. Sacrifice a servo token because you have 40 of them already, and go find your Craterhoof Behemoth and cast it from Evolving Door.
Gross. I'm here for it.
Yeah,
Someone do that when you do take a picture and tweet at us. The next card I really like, this one, it doesn't feel very flashy. It is a rare. This is Topiary Stomper. It's a 4/4 plant dinosaur for 1 green. It has vigilance, and it says when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And then it also says it can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands. I really like this. I continue to like 3 mana ramp cards that are similar to Cultivate or Kodama's Reach. On a creature, we have Farhaven Health previously. It's mana fixing for multicolor decks. I probably won't add it to Omnath, which is my landfall deck, but I do think that I would put this in decks that are already 3+ colors that are running green. So I find that when I build a deck that is more than 2 colors, I think I rely very heavily on green. Even if I look at like my 5-color Super Friends deck, which is Joda, I'm running majority green, and then I'm grabbing my basics off of some other cards. I mean, I do have some fetch lands in there, of course. But I think this is a really good card if you're looking for a way to fix your mana in a 3-color deck. I don't expect this card to be super expensive, but I think it's definitely going to be a few bucks. And then just a 4/4 vigilance isn't nothing.
Yeah, it really reminds me of, I think the card's called Raging Swordtooth, which is like a 3 mana 5/5 that can't attack or block unless you are ascended, which is 10 or more permanents, and it allows you to play more than one. It allows you to play an extra land drop, but this one just fetches the land for you. But it really feels like a similar card to me, but I could see the Raging Swordtooth being much more valuable, seeing as you get to use its ability, every single turn to play an additional land.
It's something other than Raging Swordtooth. I see that now, and that one says when it enters, it deals 1 damage to each other.
It's a different.
So it's a different card, but I know what you're talking about. I feel like it's like a green. It's like is it a mythic? It's a green rare.
Wayward Swordtooth.
Wayward Swordtooth.
Yeah, it says you can play an additional land on each of your turns. It has Ascend. It's a 5/5, and it can't attack or block unless you have the Sitting's Blessing, which you get by ascending, controlling 10 or more permanents.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the one that had Enrage.
No,
I feel like there's
sorry.
an Enrage creature that also does something similar to that. But
it very well could be.
It very much is like Wayward Swordtooth, where it can attack or block unless you have the Blessing. This is just unless you have a certain number of lands. But great card. It's not flashy. I don't think it's flashy, but I think it does the job for people who are looking for ways to fix their mana.
For sure. So Elspeth Resplendent, I know we just had a really good mono white planeswalker printed in our last set in Kamigawa with the Wandering Emperor.
Really strong.
Yeah, it's strong in every format right now, from what I understand. Well, we got another one that's at least strong for Commander, in my opinion, with Elspeth Resplendent. This is a 5 mana planeswalker for 3 white. You get a 5 loyalty starting off with 3 abilities, a +1 to say choose up to 1 target creature, put a +1/+1 counter and a counter from from among flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance on it. You have a -3 to look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And a -7 to create 5 3/3 white angel creature tokens with flying. So this, of course, is going to be going into my Juru with Eyes Open mono white planeswalkers deck. But this card is, most of the time you look at how strong is the emblem, and 15 flying power is very strong. It's not something that's going to make you win the game on the spot, especially in Commander. So I'm not really looking at the ultimate when I'm looking at how strong this is going to be for Juru, on top of the fact that I never get to ultimate my planeswalkers in Juru. They always get knocked out beforehand. But being able to permanently give my Commander flying with just a +1 on this with the flying counter is actually really, really, really strong for the deck. One of the best ways that deck has to win is to swing out with my Commander with Juru, which happens to already have vigilance on it. So 3 activations to give him flying, first strike, and lifelink, and +3/+3 for the rest of the game would be absolutely fantastic. There are a few cards you can hit with the -3. It's not super plentiful. I think there's maybe 15 cards that you can hit other than lands there with that -3. So really the big thing is just going to be the +1 on this Elspeth. But I am going to finally have to remove a planeswalker from that deck in order to add this one. The planeswalker concentration is just a little bit too high right now. So there's probably a high mana value Gideon that's coming out from like a dual deck or something that really probably should have come out 3 iterations ago. That'll finally come out now.
Yeah. I think it's a cool card. I think it works really well in your Juru deck.
Yeah.
I think that'll be cool to see. My next card's actually white as well. This is Boone of Safety. It's an instant for a single white mana. It says put a shield counter on target creature, and then it has scry 1. I think it's a great protection spell overall. It's reminiscent of what I use cards like Brave the Elements or God's Willing for. So you can give like protection from a color till end of turn. Although this isn't protection per se, it kind of helps dodge most cards that I think are dealing with my creatures usually. I feel like I occasionally get like a Path to Exile or Swords to Plowshares used on my creature, and of course this wouldn't work on those, because if it would be dealt damage or destroyed, you remove shield counter instead. But if you exile it, I'm out of luck. But I feel like Boone of Safety is good when someone is using a Blasphemous Act, or they decide to just single target destroy. Having another 1 mana option is nice. Also, having Scry 1 is really cool. I know I don't talk about it very often. It is in fact still together, but this really works in Feather. It works really well in Feather because I can put a shield counter on target creature, and because I targeted a creature I control, I can put it to exile and put it back in my hand, and I can stack shield counters, which I think is pretty cool, and scry to more cards that are going to draw me cards, because Feather has a lot of the target creature gains haste until end of turn and draw a card, so you can scry till you get those. I think Boone of Safety is really cool, and I put it on here specifically for Feather because I need to dust, blow off the dust and bring Feather back out. I don't think Feather got an update last year at all. I don't think I didn't spend a lot of time playing that because I played Feather, I think, a lot the year it came out. Sure. And then I said, okay, I'm going to put this away for a while. I think it's time to bring it back out for a few more games, and Boone of Safety is going there.
Yeah, I like whenever I looked at Boone of Safety, I looked at I cast Wrath of God, hold priority, Boone of Safety on my commander.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so it's just I look at Boone of Safety as splice into Wrath of God.
Oh yeah, splice into Damnation.
That's right.
Splice onto Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, splice onto board wipe. Boone of Safety. Very cool. I really like this uncommon sorcery in mono black called Rogue's Gallery, and let me tell you, it's not because it's mono black. Actually, this one cares about a lot of different colors. So Rogue's Gallery for 3 mana, 2 and a black. It's a sorcery that says for each color, return up to 1 target creature card of that color from your graveyard to your hand. Now, I know I already talked about my Morophon deck today, but this one's going in my Morophon deck again. This one is almost like Primeval's Glorious Rebirth that's going to bring back all of my legendary creatures, because again, Morophon is going to make my creatures cost next to, if not 0 mana every time I cast them. So Rogue's Gallery, being able to pick out in most cases probably 5 unique creatures. When they say return up to 1 target creature for each color, I can choose Saskia the Unyielding for any of the 4 colors that is in her color identity. So if she's the only card with black in my graveyard, that'll be my black creature. Then I'll grab four other creature colors. So Rogue's Gallery is going to turn into another Primeval's Glorious Rebirth for me in that deck, and I'll be able to come back after board wipes, which is the biggest problem for that deck. So more answers.
Yeah, it feels like the graveyard version of Conflux in that deck. Conflux is you can just search for a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green card, but they can be multicolor. They don't have to be monocolor. They just have to be in your graveyard. But you do usually have all 5 colors once like 2 creatures die.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that's all you need. Yep.
Yeah, Rogue's Gallery is really a really neat card. The next one that I do have already a home for when it arrives is Jaxus the Troublemaker. So this is a rare. It is a 2/3 legendary creature human warrior for 3 and a red. And Jaxus the Troublemaker has pay a red and tap to discard a card to create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. And then you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, activate only as a sorcery. So it's kind of like Blitz, like you're discarding and giving the Blitz text. Jaxus also has Blitz for 1 and a red, so it gains haste, and when it dies, you draw a card and you have to sack it. But this fits really well, I think, honestly, into a lot of just red commander decks. If you're running mono red, I feel like a lot of them do have a decent amount of ETB effects. So when they enter, they do something really cool. I already run a red deck that makes copies of creatures that already have to be sacrificed at the end of my turn. So in my Rionia Fire Dancer, I'm already making copy tokens of creatures I control. So Jaxus making it so that I can get multiple additional copies of those creatures that I already want to make, and I already anticipate on losing. This is cool though, because I can make a copy of one of them that has the text, when this creature dies, draw a card. And then when I do Rionia to stack it, I can make that copy of it so that when they all die, I also draw a card.
Yes.
Instead of just the one that wouldn't have the, I guess, Blitz text.
Right. So now you could actually use stuff that cares about your creatures dying, because Rionia would normally exile them at the end step, but now all of them can die at end step. So if you wanted to do any sort of death triggers and stuff, you can actually build that into it too. That's really cool.
I just think Rionia alone, or Jaxus alone, would be a really cool commander.
Yeah, I'm interested on what, so I know like Felden of the Third Path or whatever is a good mono red, cares about your graveyard, and I wonder what in the 99 besides that you can fit into a Jaxus deck to really care about the discarding the card part of it. If it's just flashback or graveyard matters, or there's got to be something, and I'm curious to see what it is. But Blitz being able to let you draw a card and replace that card every single time you do it, really like that.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to do the work that I expect it to do.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. Okay, can I say this? I'm going to put this next statement up on the board. I think this card is the best clone they've ever printed in Magic the Gathering.
That is a tall order.
Yes.
Just requested.
Yes. And I know people are going to throw some like really bonkers clones that like make 12 different clones and stuff out there. But for a single clone card, Undercover Operative is now my favorite clone card in Magic. So for 4 mana, for 2 blue, you get a 0/0 Shapeshifter Rogue. It says you may have Undercover Operative enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with a shield counter on it if you control that creature. So you basically get a creature that dodges a piece of removal or a board wipe or something by cloning your own creature, but it also has the option of being able to clone any creature on the battlefield, just in case your opponent already has that necessary Craterhoof Behemoth that you need to finish out the game. But just, I'm going to be sticking this in my Sultai Clones deck. I already have a Sakashima of 1,000 Faces that's going to not care about the legendary rule, so I understand that maybe you could argue that Sakashima of 1,000 Faces is better because you can ignore the legendary rule as a clone effect, but I already have that as my commander, so that one doesn't count. So Undercover Operative is going to be able to make a shield counter version of my Ikra Shadiki that's going to survive the board wipe that's eventually going to happen, and I'll still have a creature out there with a big butt in order to protect my life total and start gaining me life back. Really, really, really am in love with this clone card.
What? The joke's on you, though, because I'm holding both Path and Swords in my hand right now, so I'm going to get both Ikras.
That's fine.
I'm kidding. But no, I think it's a fantastic card. I do think that it probably competes with Clever Impersonator, because that one could come in as a copy of anything. But I think this is a really good card. I am looking forward to seeing how well shield counters work, because if they just work like the totem armor, as we've seen before, it works great. It does not, though, say anything about sacrifice, and I don't remember the exact text on totem armor, but I feel totem armor works that you can sack the totem armor if you have to sacrifice your creature. I don't know if shield counters do that.
No, it doesn't look like, because it only cares about dealing damage or being destroyed.
So there is definitely totem armor does say, if enchanted permanent would be destroyed, instead remove all damage marked on it and destroy this aura. We'll have to see how it works. But if it does, in fact, work like totem armor, I love shield counters. Please.
Oh, yeah.
Give us more of them. I think it will be a very popular mechanic if it does, in fact, work like totem armor. I don't have any clones deck, but I know I played recently against a clones deck that also makes that is also an Oops All Tezzeret's deck that would love another clone in Undercover Operative.
Oh yeah.
So the next card that I have is one that I feel embodies me when I'm at a party. And I am ready to leave. And the card is Slip Out the Back, because, we just recently had a holiday, and you get there and you hug everybody and you have to do the whole hi, and how are you? And you say hi to literally 30 people. When you go to leave, you do it again. But I'd rather just slip out the back. And they go, where'd Andy go? It's like, oh, he left 2 hours ago. Well, I didn't get to say goodbye. Well, he saved himself 40 minutes.
Yeah, shoot him a text message. It'll mean the same. Promise.
Exactly. So Slip Out the Back is an instant for 1 blue, and it says put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It phases out. So phasing is also a mechanic that we are seeing come up occasionally. It is not the main focus in the set. It is not too confusing. It is. I think I'm not sure if this is the only instance. I actually did not look that up from this set. If this is the only instance of phasing like we've seen before from some sets, but this card's great to prevent removal from your most important piece on the board, or to keep yourself alive by phasing something out from your opponent's board, or getting rid of something that's preventing you from doing what you're trying to do. If there's something that says you can't sacrifice creatures, or something that says you can't draw additional cards, you know what? You can phase out. You can come back. It's fine. Like, I'm not kicking you out of the party. You need to go slip out the back for a minute and take a breather. You can come back. So I think this card's great. I think I will find a home for this. 1 mana is great. I do think that this is probably a contender for Noyandar just because of how much protection I need for Noyandar. So I can put a counter on Noyandar, phase it out, animate a land, and then Noyandar comes back none the wiser. He didn't go anywhere. I've been here the whole time.
I was always here.
I was always here. Definitely wink.
No, I really like the phasing mechanic here. It's really nice to, the only, I always am back and forth on phasing versus flickering, whether or not you even need the ETB, but I guess phasing, you can save summoning sickness in case that matters for a creature that has to tap or something like that. There's definitely a lot of ways. I probably need to look at phasing as a mechanic to be used in some more of my blue decks to help save my creatures. I currently don't look at phasing at all right now, so I need to change that about myself.
Oh my gosh, we're growing here on this show. I love this for us.
It's great. So now the last card I have on my list here is Rafine's Guidance. This is just a common that probably is going to be very special to you, but I'm going to tell you why it's special to me. Rafine's Guidance for 1 white. You get an enchantment aura that has enchant creature. The enchanted creature gets +1/+1. But my favorite part of the text here is you may cast Rafine's Guidance from your graveyard by paying 2 and a white rather than paying its mana cost. If I could somehow just cast this from my graveyard on every single turn in my Vega the Watcher deck, that would be so swell with me. So Vega the Watcher is a bird spirit from Kaldheim that cares about casting cards from anywhere other than your hand, giving you extra card advantage by letting you draw a card every time you do so. So just a simple enchantment that gives +1/+1. It's really not going to help me get anywhere, but at the same time, I'm not one to leave damage on the board. I'm swinging with Vega every single turn that I can. So giving Vega +1/+1, makes it harder to remove. Can swing in. But the important part is that it doesn't have the escape ability that we saw in Theros Beyond Death, where escape, you could cast cards from your graveyard for their escape cost while also exiling a number of cards from your graveyard. With this one, this could be the only card in my graveyard, and I would be able to cast it from my graveyard. And for that, I think it's actually better than their, I think it's Sentinel's Eyes is the card I'm thinking of with escape. That is an aura that gives +1/+1 and vigilance. The vigilance is very nice, but it has the same casting cost, and you have to exile cards from my graveyard. So I think I like Rafine's Guidance a little bit more. I'll probably still have both, and I'll probably just take out a really high CMC card that mills cards, most likely, because there's still a few in there in my Vega deck. But I'm happy to see some more low mana cost cards for Vega that have really easy ways to cast them from the graveyard.
Yeah, I thought about it, and there's those cards like Boone's Griff Boone. But they return them and they don't cast them. So It's nice that you can actually cast this from the graveyard. I also can utilize this in my Satsuki deck that is just an Enchantress deck. Although I don't know if I want to necessarily play an enchantment that does put +1/+1, that just gives +1/+1. It is nice to have it. So if you did lose some things and you have a few Enchantresses, you can draw some cards.
Maybe Light Paws would be okay with this one or something.
Yeah, Light Paw. Imagine that Light Paws wanting an aura. Light Paws has we've paused Light Paws because it has. If you saw the stream, if you watched the video on YouTube, if you've played against anyone's Light Paws deck, it's really good. It's one that it's not too good that it always wins, but it's too good that it feels bad to play it all the time. So
sure.
It's one of those decks. Now, what deck did we get the most cards from this set? And I'm going to go first here because mine's going to be really short, which is because I primarily build 1 and 2 color decks. I did not get a ton of cards that I can specifically pinpoint an individual deck and say this set gave this deck 10 things. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty gave Niambi Esteemed Speaker, Legendary Reanimator, everything, and the cake, and Niambi ate it too. It was great. In this set, I have a few pieces that are really cool. I think the closest I can do is Adrix and Nev Twin Casters. Okay. So it's a deck that, I'm just looking to make multiple tokens. So there's a lot of cards that we mentioned generically got treasure, whether that's good or bad. Remains to be seen still, but if I'm playing a card that can make treasure, I'm going to make 2 of it if I have Adrix and Nev out. We did get a very insane green mythic that has all of your lands can tap to make treasures. Yep. That is bananas, as some would say. In Adrix and Nev, it's fantastic. I think this probably got more than anything, but not because there's any specific card that I'm like, this has to go here. This is it. This is the thing. Just because it just synergizes well with what Adrix and Nev does. I think this personally, this set for me is I can build a new commander deck that's going to be 3 colors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot to say about that. And I think there's going to be, with the amount of legendary creatures that they're printing both between the regular set and the commander deck set, there's got to be like 5 that each person's going to want to build. So it'll be exciting. But I did get a lot of cards for one of my decks in particular, and that is my Livio, Oathsworn Sentinel, and Ludovic Necro Alchemist Partners deck. So this one is white, blue, and red, and it really cares about flickering and blinking. So enter the battlefield effects. We got a lot of good enter the battlefield effects on top of the new Cabaretti keyword Alliance, which is basically enter the battlefield, but for all of your other creatures coming out. So we got a lot of really good effects for the deck, strict upgrades in some cases for some cards, and potentially, and I don't know if I want to call it a new win condition or a win enabler, but definitely a way to win the game with a brand new card. So first up, we have Devilish Valet. Devilish Valet will be another way to knock somebody out of this game. Devilish Valet for 3 mana, 2 in a red, you get a 1/3 Devil Warrior with Trample and Haste. It has an Alliance mechanic. It says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. So a lot of times with this Livio deck, I am exiling, 10 of my creatures at a time and bringing them all back with Livio's second ability. And that should be enough in most cases to have Devilish Valet become lethal. So with just 6 other creatures entering the battlefield with Devilish Valet will have 64 power with both haste and trample. So hopefully that will be enough to get through to someone, maybe in combination with a Chandra's Ignition or a Fling. I will be able to take out 2 players at a time using something like that. Next, we have Exhibition Magician. This is for 3 mana, 2 in a red. You get a 2/1 human wizard that has kind of a modal effect on the ETB. You either get a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token, or you create a treasure token. So being able to ramp with cards that I'm already going to be blinking, hopefully on every single turn, is fantastic. And if I need to create chump blockers or I'm setting up to try to win the game later in the game with a big giant go wide board, I have the ability to do that with that card. Extraction Specialist is the next one on here for 3 mana, 2 and a white. You get a 3/2 human rogue with lifelink that says when Extraction Specialist enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature can't attack or block for as long as you control Extraction Specialist. So not only is that not a problem, because I'll be able to just exile Extraction Specialist with Livio if I do need to attack or block with that 2 mana creature, but a majority of the creatures in this deck are actually 3 mana and lower. There is quite a bit that is 2 and 1 mana in the deck, so this card will be able to bring back all those creatures from my graveyard back to the battlefield eventually. It will take some time, but I really like this card for added board state advantage. Mage's Attendant is my favorite card being added to this deck. I think it's going to be a mainstay in a lot of blink decks. I imagine if you have like a Nadir Selfless Paladin blink deck out there or something like that, you're going to want a Mage's Attendant in there too. So Mage's Attendant for 2 and a white, you get a 3/2 cat rogue. It says when Mage's Attendant enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 blue wizard creature token with pay 1 generic and sacrifice this creature to counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. So it's a way to threaten people to have to pay more mana for their abilities or straight up counter them. And in a blink or flicker deck, you're going to be able to constantly bring them back and be able to create more and more of these wizards to put more and more pressure on your opponent when they try to cast their board wipes or anything like that. We talked about Witty Roastmaster already, Perforos Impact Tremors redundancy. That's going to go in the deck. And then finally, Hypnotic Grifter is the card that's going to be this new win condition in the deck. It's a 1 blue mana, 1/2 human rogue that you can pay 3 generic mana to connive. So because the deck does have the ability to create infinite colorless mana with a Zerta the Dawnwaker and Basalt Monolith, I'll be able to actually filter through my entire deck and find whatever answer I need, win condition I need. I do run a Thassa's Oracle in the deck, so I could win with a Thassa's Oracle eventually if I had the mana to cast it, or just, connive 70 cards and hopefully I'll have a Hypnotic Grifter that's like 50 power or something and swing at someone and kill them with it. So
yeah, I like this deck a lot of yours. It's one that we don't see very often. It extends the length of games, so it's one of those that you usually play at game 1 on one of our streams, because if it does go 2 hours, then we know for the next game everybody got up the power to a game that can win in an hour or less.
Right.
It's nice to see though, and I don't see many Livio Ludwig decks, so I'm happy happy to see you're getting a lot of new cards for that. Now the next section here we do every episode is if we were to build a commander deck based on cards from the base set, what would we build? So we do have a stream that is coming out in just a few weeks. So it will be on Tuesday, May 3rd. We're going to be streaming with Colin O'Clock and Andy Bentley with all brand new commanders from the main set of Streets of New Capenna at 8 p.m. Eastern. So you can head to twitch.tv/Guardian Project Podcast to watch that. And we have already talked about some of the decks that we, if you're in our Discord, we've been talking about some, but I personally am going to be playing Ginny Faye Jetmir second. So that is a 3/3 elf druid. So this is hybrid Gruul green and then hybrid Selesnya. So it's a combination of red, green, and then green, white, but I have to have a green in there no matter what. So I can pay it in multiple different colors, but it says if you would create one or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 3/1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. So it is a sweet tokens deck. I do have some ways to make some clues and some treasures. So Academy Manufactor works really, really well in here. I'm not sure, the power level of the deck exactly, but I did make sure that I had enough ways to sacrifice some creatures to go grab. I did have Craterhoof in there because I do have to win through combat damage. I do not have an alt win con, so I must swing to win. I'm really excited to try this out. Ginny Faye seems really, really cool. For those of you in mortgage servicing, it sounds like Ginny May, which is not, but I can't say anything other than I can't unhear Ginny May at this point.
Sure.
Another commander, there's actually 3 commanders that I really think overall that I probably will at least some point put together. I think I like Quasar, Augur of Agonies, which is 1 white, blue, black. It's a 3/4 Cephalid advisor that says whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. There's a couple of infinite combos. I've seen people in our Discord. I've seen some people, actually I've only seen it in our Discord, so maybe it was talked about there, but people are calling it nice Nekusar or nice Qsar. So you can wheel and then you gain life and target opponent loses 1 life. So it's not each, but it's just playing white, blue, and black spells that draw cards, which is all I want to do. So even if I don't win, I just drew my deck, so that's cool. And then finally, Giada, Font of Hope. It's a mono white card. It's an angel for 1 and a white. It's a 2/2 with flying vigilance that says each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. And then it's a mana dork for angels. So it taps for a white to spend it only on angel spells. It's pretty cool. I'm not sure if I would build this one right away, but it feels like if I don't play against it or someone in our play group at home, or at least the spell table group in our Discord just doesn't really build this, I think I want to put it together because I did want an angel deck and it was going to be Abyss and Angel of Hope, and I never put it together. It was like one of those, I had a deck list and said, meh, I'll move on. And then it just never came to fruition. But I feel like I'd want to do it now with this, because like the additional +1/+1 counter seems pretty decent.
Yeah, no, it cascades almost, right? It's for each angel you control, you get a +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, so it ends up being huge come end game. Yeah, giving you something to do early in an Angels deck is cool. I am surprised to hear Quasar known as nice Nekusar, because the first thing I thought of was, I can Narset wheel and still deal damage to everyone, but even though they can't draw cards, I'm still dealing damage with my commander.
I mean, you could, but you don't,
right?
Because we don't.
Because you just don't do that. No, I understand. But that's just the first thing that came to my head, which says a lot about me, I think. But all right, so the commander that I am building for our stream, that I originally wasn't super happy about building, but after I built it, I actually fell in love with this deck. It's Rafine Scheming Seer. So this is in the Obscura family leader, actually. So for white, blue, black, you get a 1/4 Sphinx Demon with flying and ward 1. This is whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So this deck is built around kind of a fly and go wide strategy. It plays cards that have some pretty good evasion when attacking if they don't have flying. So maybe Skulk or something like that, but it's mostly flying tribal in a way, but I also have added some cards in here to play with the graveyard, since I'm going to be discarding cards. So cards that are going to help me with discard strategies like Library of Lang, so that I can keep putting cards back on top of my library that I need to. I'm actually playing 10 MDFC lands in this deck for the first time. Like, I never play MDFCs.
I just shed a single tear.
Oh, you just wait, Andy. It gets better. So I did that because Rafine, you only get the +1/+1 counters if you discard non-land cards. So there's 10 MDFCs to take up 10 of the land slots. So I'll get more +1/+1 counters to take advantage of not only just making my creatures larger, but creatures like Chasm Skulker, where I'm going to end up getting more creatures depending on how many +1/+1 counters they have on them, or Sage of Hours, which allows me to remove 5 +1/+1 counters and take an extra turn. So maybe I'll have an ability to take infinite turns or something like that. But yeah, on top of the 10 MDFCs, since I am quote unquote playing something outside of my norm, I decided to also play some split second cards in this deck.
Gosh.
Yeah, so I'm playing some nice split seconds here. Mostly, I was just looking through some Modern Horizons 2 stuff, and I'm going to play Dakin Shadow Slayer for some Surveil stuff. It cares about the graveyard, and I saw Sudden Edict in there. I went, okay, sure, I'll throw my split second cards in here too. So the deck looks like it's going to have a lot of fun. We do have an alternate win condition of Thassa's Oracle, because there will be times that I could potentially have a 30 or 40 creature board state, swing with everything, and go down to barely anything in my library. So I wanted to have that alternate win condition in the event that I can't get there with just damage.
Nice. Well, hopefully that is a lot of fun. So that's in just a couple of weeks. But this weekend is actually the pre-release. So everybody who's going out to the New Capenna pre-release, have fun this weekend. And that's it for the episode this week. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Andy Flory.
And you can find me on Twitter at Wormcoil Engine. Of course, we want to give a special thanks to Ryan Nichols, our producer and editor. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And Chris Wolf, who handles all of our graphic design. Check out his design work over on our YouTube channel. Thank you for everything that you do. And for all of you listeners out there, we will chat with you next week.